don't know how many of you have been together for 25 years, but I would say that any of you that have been together for 25 years should get an award. But when you see a band that's been together 25 years, you better pay attention. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the lead singer of a Grammy-nominated group called Swing Out Sister, who sold millions of records worldwide, who is here in an intimate setting in London to talk about Swing Out Sisters' music, their life, their work, and the creative process, and to bring us into what is considered an obscure domain. Corinne Drewery, their lead singer, one of the founding members of the band, is a classy, kind, accessible, creative artist who has no problem sharing the truth of her life and work. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Corinne Drewery to It's Rainmaking Time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. I'm here in London with Corinne Drewery.
That's correct.
She is the lead singer of my favorite band, Swing Out Sister, and along with Andy Connell and the rest of the band has been touring and bringing uplifting music to audiences around the world since 1985?
Yeah, it was 1985. It's so long ago I can't remember. A good few years.
It can't be that long because you all have been together longer than many couples have been together.
Yeah.
This band deserves a Nobel just for being together.
Yeah, well, we keep things moving. I think probably keeping things interesting is the key. And there always has to be an element of surprise for us as the band and also to anyone who's listening. Things that when we're rehearsing to do a tour or when we're writing a song, if we can surprise each other, then we know it's going to be a surprise to whoever's listening.
I love your music. The uplifting, big, open, spacious joyousness of the heart that your music imbues. You've been touring for 25 years, and when I watch your audiences, people are so happy and full of love. I have never in an audience seen the happiness and the joyousness and people holding each other in an audience ever, and I've seen everybody.
Oh, well, that's lovely to know. I mean, I think there's a strange thing happens when you perform to an audience. I tend to find that we get lost in the moment. I mean, people come to a concert because they want to listen. You're on the stage because you want to play. And then it's like you're sending this stuff out, sound, and it generates this other energy. It's quite an amazing thing. I mean, I forget myself. I don't think about standing on a stage and singing anymore. I'm just feeling stuff coming back from the audience. It's the greatest feeling to see that people are enjoying what you're doing and you're enjoying what you're doing. It creates another third thing, which you can't really explain it, but all you can do is feel it, I suppose.
Life is different when you're not touring, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a time of recharging, and sometimes it can feel a bit flat if you're not careful because you're on tour with a band of great people. There's lots of ideas flying around. You've got a performance every night, a lot of travelling. You have to build up a lot of energy to do a tour, but you use a lot of energy doing it as well. So when you come back, some kind of recuperation is required and a bit of recharging. And then if you're getting ideas together for something new, it is very quiet and quite solitary. It needs to be. So it's the complete opposite to performances and being on tour and surrounded by people and energy and things. You then come back into a quiet time and are delving into the depths of your mind for whatever you're going to be doing the next time. And I think that's where you can get a bit lost sometimes. I think, why am I doing this? Where am I going? What was that all about? Will I ever be able to do it again? I'm sure every artist, musician, writer, creative person, well, anyone, you go through those feelings. You've just done something that's been really fulfilling, and then you go away and you're going to start from scratch again to think of the next thing. And I think probably you just have to look the other way. I feel like looking the other way is the thing that helps, like staring at a blank piece of paper, singing notes that haven't come into your head yet. It's like trying to think of something, focus on writing a song is not really the way it works. I think think of something else. Go for a walk, sit in a cafe, swim 20 lengths at the swimming bath, go for a ride on your bike, stroke a few dogs and cats.
Now we're talking. I think I'll sing my song.
Yeah.
Come down from the pasture, Corinne. Okay.
And then while you're not thinking about it, something will just enter your head and just fill you with a nice feeling. I think that's probably what Andy and I try to do. You're trying to capture the feelings that perhaps other songs have given to you, or that you feel when you're not thinking about anything, just something enters your head and spreads this great feeling. And it's an imaginary thing. It doesn't exist. I always remember when we started off writing songs, I had been a fashion designer and spent 5 years at art school before getting into creating things out of sound. So I was very confused because I couldn't see anything. In those days we had cassettes, and I'd have hundreds and hundreds of recordings on cassette, and I had to do something to make each cassette. If you have a recording of something that's a song before it has a name, before it has any lyrics, how do you remember this piece of music? Andy could always just remember the melody off by heart, and his key is the keyboard, so he can lay his fingers on a keyboard and remember it. But for me to remember it in my head, I'd have to draw a picture, or some colours, or stick flowers, or some leaves or something on the cassette boxes, just to say, this was that song, this is the next. Before it has an identity, you've got to imagine what it makes you feel like. And that's a bit like how Andy and I work together. He, more often than not, well, he always writes a piece of music first, and then he'll say, Corinne takes 10 years to come up with the lyrics. But I usually react to the music. I have hundreds and hundreds of little notebooks with a line here and a line there and a phrase here. And when I hear the music, I'll just see what feeling that conjures up and what it makes me sing. I wouldn't consider myself a great lyricist, but I think that something happens. Some people look for meaning in lyrics, and I don't think it's quite as straightforward as that for me. I don't really mind what the lyrics say, as long as they say the right thing at the right time with the music, and then that opens this other Pandora's box of thoughts in your mind. If the music and the words hit each other at the right time, it doesn't really matter what you're singing about, it's what it makes you feel.
So do the words come to you, or does Andy come up with the sound of it, the feeling tone of the music?
No, Andy writes the music. He comes up with the sound and the feeling, and then I'll come along and contradict it all with some words. I mean, the words don't always go in the same direction as the emotions that you would imagine the music conjures up. I think we're quite antagonistic. If I'm singing something sad, Andy will play something really happy, and if I'm singing something happy, Andy will be melancholy.
The inner workings of the two of you.
Yeah, I think
this is creative process, though, right?
Yeah, we are very antagonistic in a very gentle way. I don't think we get
I call it creative friction.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think there has to be some friction. If you're all going in the same direction all the time, you're not really going to come up with something new. I think it's those musical arguments that actually take you to another place.
Do you ever find that in the creative realm that you get attached to the child, which is the song, and you have a vision or a sense of it to go a certain way? Andy may have a very, very different sense. How do you find the way to resolve? And is that because of your larger relationship or the bigger relationship between the two of you that allows for that? Or is it some protocol you've agreed on?
Oh no, we don't agree on anything. I don't think anything is spoken about. And that very often happens. In fact, with most things we do, we have a disagreement about. And we're both very stubborn. So we'll kind of stick to our guns, but make a few little exceptions and changes till we find some way we can agree. I don't think either one of us would completely get our own way unless it's an instrumental. Sometimes if Andy really can't agree with something I come with, or if I think he's written a piece of music so beautiful, I don't want to spoil it by putting words or a voice on it. I go, this one should be an instrumental. And I think some of them just speak for themselves. They don't need words, they don't need lyrics, they don't need a voice. Sometimes it gets in the way.
You remind me of a really good midwife. The way you talk about music, like you're part of bringing it to life. You're not just transmitting it, but you also have the role in bringing it, inviting it in, and then helping it move through that time space to get to us.
Yeah, I suppose so. The conception of any idea, it's almost, you would love it to just stay at the conception stage. We don't want to get into too many analogies here, but I think before you actually know what it is, it's quite an exciting time, because you can't explain it, you can't describe it. It's this feeling in your head, your mind, and your senses. And I think Andy has maybe one idea at conception, I have another. So if we're not careful, when the two of us get together, you can destroy the other's conception of what this idea might be. So it takes quite a long time for you to actually bring it out into the world. You know, you want to protect this thing before it comes out. And I probably have not really analysed it before like that, but I think Andy likes to be on his own when he's getting his ideas together, and so do I. And it's quite difficult when we bring the two together to bring it out into the open, because, you know, it could destroy it all. So
is that the role, for example, of a good producer, to help bring that through? Like,
it really
like
is.
Someone like Paul. Talk a little bit
Yes.
about Paul Stavery.
Paul Staveley O'Duffy was actually a great person to bring Swing Out Sister together and to nurture us and to make our songs, to take them to a different place, I think. Paul's been like another member of the band for the time we've been together and worked together. I think when we first started out, none of us really knew what we were doing. We were all quite new to writing songs together. Andy had been in a band prior to Swing Out Sister, A Certain Ratio, and they were kind of funky, industrial funk. They were really into the New York dance scene in the early 80s, and the music reflected that, with quite a lot of jazz as well. Martin, who's in the band at the time, had previously been in a band called Magazine, and they were kind of punk and quite rocky. And Paul came, I don't know where Paul came from. He had been working with his brother. He'd been
Don't mind her, Paul.
Well, he was just, he arrived at the right time, and I don't think any of us understood each other. This is the great thing of all these different minds coming together. Paul had been working in America. He'd worked with people like Barry White and the Bar-Kays, and he'd also been an engineer and worked alongside his brother, who'd worked with people like the Walker Brothers and the Fifth Dimension and a lot of 60s classics. And I think that's where Paul gets that great understanding of harmony and arrangements and depth that you can capture in a recording. So when we got together, it was a bit of a mess, and the fact that we finished anything with our first album, It's Better to Travel, was quite an achievement, because it's trying to round up, you know, 4 different people's ideas of what a record should be when nobody really knows. I think the area where our paths crossed and we managed to agree to a certain extent was film scores, and we all loved John Barry and Ennio Morricone, so that was a really good starting point. And from my point of view, it was the collaborations with John Barry and Shirley Bassey. Those epic Bond theme tunes, and then we kind of from that progressed to Burt Bacharach and Dionne Warwick and a lot of those great songs. But I'd always liked soul music, Tamla Motown, Northern Soul. Andy loved jazz. Martin was into rock and punk. Paul was into the Beach Boys. So it was a kind of melting pot, you know. I mean, the Beach Boys, amongst many other things. I'm just trying to simplify it, or otherwise I could go on for hours about all the music we like. But we were trying to find a place where all those passions met. And, you know, there was a lot of disagreement, a lot of frisson, as you say. You know, we were very antagonistic, but I think it made us clear out the stuff that really wouldn't work, and it stuck together somewhere where all of those ideas met.
Did you ever want to quit when it got to a certain point of...
Not really. No. I think I wanted to see it through, but it was tough, constantly having to fight for your area. And I think it's because none of us really knew what it was. It was just a time of discovery for all of us, I think. We didn't really know quite what we were trying to achieve, but we knew it had to be good. This was our first album. And it was great having Paul Staveley O'Duffy at the helm, because he was a good referee, and he was tough enough to be able to say, no, cut the crap, this is what we're doing. And he did steer a very difficult ship. But the final piece of music we did was the theme from It's Better to Travel, and I think that sealed the fact that we always had this cinematic soundtrack idea that would close our album. You know, it was like, this is where we're going next. And so that led the way to the next album, Kaleidoscope World, that was quite a lot more cinematic, and we got to work with Jimmy Webb and incorporated lots of vocal harmonies and orchestration. It was great. It was just like our imaginations unfolded with every album into a slightly different world.
When did you know you had a voice and that your life was going to go beyond fashion and modeling?
Well, I still don't know.
I guess you're still on that discovery tour.
Yeah.
Who's on first?
Help,
Paul, come back.
I know. I suppose the time when I made the decision to be a full-time singer was after I'd had a horse riding accident. It was Christmas 1984. My stepfather had a horse. It hadn't really been ridden very much. It was quite young, and I hadn't ridden for a long, long time. And I was going, oh, I'll have a go, just thinking it'll be fine. And I didn't have a proper riding hat. My mum said I was going to ride bareback with no hat, because I loved to do that when I was younger. And she said, well, you don't know the horse. I'm going, oh, it'll be fine. No, here, find a hat. And I found this hat that I'd had when I was a kid. It didn't have any safety standards. It wasn't a safety standard approved hat. It was one that I had had when I was about
Probably a fashion hat,
7 years old. Well, it was
Chapeau.
before that kind of stuff existed. It was kind of bendy. It offered no protection. It had a piece of elastic sewn by hand under the chin. And I just thought, oh, well, I'll just wear this. And the horse went wild, didn't want me on it, went galloping down the road, rearing and bucking, and I can remember the Charge of the Light Brigade, I think, going through my head, or is it William Tell's overture? And I thought that was quite funny at the time, because I kicked my feet out of the stirrups and threw down the reins. It was a young horse, and I'd always had it drilled into me, you don't pull the reins on a young horse's mouth, because if it damages the mouth, nobody could ride it. It's going to be wild. So I was doing a bit of horse whispering and just hugging it round the neck and holding onto the mane, thinking, stop, stop, stop. It wouldn't stop. It wanted me off. So I jumped and I hit a wall. So the horse stopped as soon as I jumped off, because my mum came by in the pickup truck with my stepfather going, oh, who's that person covered in blood, looking like some terrible victim of a terrible accident? Oh my God, it's my daughter. And the horse had stopped to eat grass. Luckily, my mum just scooped me up and took me to hospital. I was unconscious for 3 days. Her story is, I sat bolt upright as soon as I came round and said, I'm going to be a pop star. I'm going, no, I didn't say that. That wouldn't be my words. I wouldn't have said that for a start. And, you know I've changed. I did realise that I didn't want to go back to doing fashion design, and I had 3 months to lie and recuperate while I got my senses back. If I ever really got them back, I don't think I did. But I wrote down thoughts and feelings. That's all I could do. I couldn't really move. I was too dizzy to walk. I couldn't speak properly. I had to kind of get all my faculties back, and I was lucky to do that, because you hear some horror stories that people have had head injuries, the terrible things that can happen. I was lucky. I think the only side effect I have had from that head injury is if I take down an 8-digit telephone number, I get the second to last 2 numbers the other way around. That's the only thing I've noticed. Wow. And so that was quite lucky to get away with just that. But I think it also made me stop and think, I'm not really doing what I want to do in life. What am I going to do? When you've just about lost it and you've come back again, I think it does give you a feeling, well, if I am here, I don't know how long I'm going to be here, I better do what I want to do instead of backpedaling around thinking about it. Just follow your feelings. And I think that actually stopped me in my tracks and made me think, you know, I want to be a singer. That's what I'm going to do.
Prior to that, though, had you done any singing?
Yes, I had done some demos actually with Andy and Martin, and I'd auditioned with a few bands, but I still had my regular job designing clothes. I was working for a big firm that supplied lots of high street stores. It was the more commercial end of fashion. I'd had my own business for a while. I wasn't really a very good business person, lost quite a lot of money, and so was in the process of paying back various loans. And so I thought, well, while I'm doing this, I'll have some fun and join a band and perhaps sing, you know, for a hobby. But I think the thing that a lot of people are fooled into thinking is a hobby is just something you do in your spare time, and your job is what you do in the daytime. But actually, I turned it around, and so my hobby became my job. And I wasn't really doing it in order to earn a living or for it to be a job. I was just doing something I loved, and then I thought, well, actually, somebody's offering to give us a record contract and we can do this, and then I don't have to do the job that I'm not enjoying anymore. This has become my job, and it's quite a difficult transition to make, to think if you really love doing something that much and then you can actually spend your life doing it and earn a living from it, it's great. As long as you don't go into it thinking this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to make $1 million, because then it won't happen. I think it's that whole looking the other way thing. Just look over there. Oh wow, it's happened. I think, you know, that you've got to do something because you love doing it, and then the rest will take care of itself. But then maybe that's a bit of an idealistic way of thinking. But I'm not very good at business. I'm not very good at dealing with money. I'm just careful if I get some. But, you know, I kind of would like to think I could do without if I really had to.
It seems to me that one of the interesting things about you and Andy is that you don't really lose your poise. You have this centeredness about you in a field that it's very easy to lose your centeredness. You know, when you become popular and you become wanted and you become known, it's very easy to lose your way, and yet you haven't. How come you think you haven't?
Well, I'm glad you think we haven't. But I think really it's probably down to stubbornness. We're both from the north of England. I don't know if that's a particular trait of northerners, but I think probably you remain focused and you don't take compliments too well and you don't take criticism too well, or not too well. You don't take too much notice either way. You just focus on the thing that you do and the thing that you like doing, and it's great to be appreciated, but you have to still maintain that balance and look straight ahead, because it can take you off course. You know, if you take too much notice, we have people who pay us compliments, but we also have our critics, and so you don't really take too much notice of either. It's just you take it into account, but if you really let that go to your head, you really wouldn't be able to continue in the direction you're going. That's probably what I think.
If someone sat you down and said, look, you're not going to tour anymore, you're done, you can't tour anymore, would you be sad?
Well, I think, why not?
Now's the time for antagonism.
Well, I think
If someone said you can't tour anymore, would you be sad?
No, I'd probably say, well, who are you to tell me I can't tour anymore?
There you go.
And I mean, if you meant that there were a reason, if I lost my voice, or, you know, if there was something that was physically making it impossible for me to do it, I would be sad, but I'd find something else to do. You know, I'd find a way around it, but it's that happens when it's the right time. You know, I don't think we've ever planned, oh, this is the year we're going to do a tour, this is the year we're not. It always just finds itself, and something comes along to stop it sometimes. Like the last tour we were going to do of America, which is how Private View, our album, which is just coming out in America, came about because we rearranged some songs. We had a new acoustic setup, semi-acoustic setup with the band, quite a jazzy arrangements we'd done of our songs, and we thought that they haven't heard this in America before this way. This is going to sound great, and we had a great tour planned. And then the Icelandic volcano came along,
Oh my
sprinkled its ash cloud over the whole of Europe, and we couldn't leave. Nothing like this has ever happened before. And this is where Facebook comes in. I hadn't taken much notice of Facebook up until then. And there were lots of people going, oh, we can't wait to see your gig in Atlanta, in Boston, in these various places. And I just thought, it's not going to happen. We have to tell people to go and get their tickets refunded, because as the days went by, another date was cancelled, and we felt awful, didn't know what to do. And so all I could think of doing was to write to people on Facebook saying, look, it's looking unlikely, we're trying our best. And they go, well, can't you just get a flight from somewhere else? You don't understand. The whole of Europe is grounded. People can't move by train.
How long was that? That was quite a long time.
It was about 2 weeks, I think. But even trying to get, people were stranded all over Europe. Even the rails, the train tickets were all sold out. People were getting taxis from Norway to London. It's like it was kind of ridiculous. And people were getting stranded in all kinds of places, couldn't afford to stay, so having to get in touch with people to stay with. And so I wrote to people on Facebook and said, let's think of our top 10 songs. What would you think of if you were stuck in an ash cloud? Like something in the air, and the air that I breathe. All I could think of doing was making a bit of a joke of it, but it was quite scary. We were thinking, how long is this going to go on? Are they being extra cautious? Are there going to be planes falling out of the sky because they've got volcanic ash in the engines? It was kind of the unknown. But we also said to all the venues, we want to cancel this gig, not postpone it, because then people could get a refund. Because we didn't know when we'd be able to do this tour again. We still haven't done it. We're too scared. It might call up another volcano or some other natural disaster. But the one good thing that did come out of it, that was the basis for our album Private View, because I was saying to Andy, we've spent a few weeks rearranging these songs, especially for this tour. And whenever we've done something for one tour in particular, getting back to how we like to keep each other on our toes and the band and surprise ourselves, if we've done an arrangement and done it on one tour or one concert, the next time we can't help but change it, because we want to keep ourselves
fresh. Yeah,
and it keeps everyone fresh. So we never really do the same thing again. It might be similar, but we'll have changed something. And I said, we've spent this time recording these songs, we really should go into the studio and record them. Which we did, thank goodness. And so that's thanks to the Icelandic volcano, which I cannot pronounce without it sounding like I'm swearing. So it did a great thing. We made a good thing happen out of a natural disaster. And that became the kind of basis for this album, Private View, which is some of our favourite songs we picked for a concert. And then we built on them in the studio and mixed them and rearranged them and added some more things. It was just kind of a little swirl of imagination that came out of a dust cloud.
Do you ever get scared when you come out on stage at first? A little bit of something?
Only if I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, usually we've rehearsed so much, and that's thanks to Andy, who makes the whole band really rehearse so thoroughly till everyone's going, we really don't need to rehearse anymore. Yes, we do. And while we're rehearsing, new ideas evolve, and that's where the changes in arrangements and stuff comes along. But if we've just changed something in the sound check that day, or if something's gone wrong and it's thrown me slightly, that's really the only time I would get nervous. I mean, maybe for the first couple of lines of a song, till I know everything's in the right place, the monitors are working, you can hear everybody. I might be a bit nervous, but then it's great to just settle in and go along with it. And this is when this great thing happens, this exchange of energy, and you can feel stuff coming back from people as they're receiving stuff from you. And I kind of get lost in the music from then on, so I probably wouldn't really remember much of what was happening throughout a gig, unless somebody threw something or you fell down a hole in the stage, both of which have happened.
Really? You?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, that was it was a bit of an impromptu gig. Somebody had said we were doing a performance once that we were unaware of in a club in Hong Kong, and people had bought tickets and they were waiting outside. And we thought we were just going to do a question and answers interview, and it was a bit of a makeshift everything. And there was a piece of the stage was covered up with a piece of wood, and they said, don't step back on there, we're filming it from above, and we've got the logo of the band, and it was covering a staircase. It was kind of like a booby trap. So what did I do? I stepped back in it, and it was only like balsa wood, and the wood was stuck on my leg, and my leg was about I carried on singing the song. It was like some comedy sketch, you know.
Sounds like it.
But a few things that throw you, but it's good to overcome them and carry on and see, even if you forget a line, you make a joke about it, or perhaps nobody would even notice if you can do a jazzy thing with it, and it gives you an idea for another arrangement. It's kind of all about making the most of the situation, going along with it, working around with it, you know, and it usually turns into something good.
You travel so much, don't you?
Well, not so much now.
No?
I mean, I suppose it was quite a prophetic title for our first album, It's Better to Travel, because once that album came out, it went straight to #1 in England. We weren't even in England when it was #1. We were in America. We were in LA. That's all we did for the first 3 or 4 years, constantly traveling. Our feet hardly touched the ground. I think I went to yoga classes, to see chiropractors, had every kind of healing I could have had in it all over the world, you know, reflexology, massages, anything that could kind of ground you, because we were just flying around the world more or less constantly for 3 or 4 years. And I think we do a bit less now. And I quite like it. I think the pace has slowed down a bit. Things have changed, you know, that you can't really buy CDs anymore. You can't buy vinyl. Well, you can in specialist stores. That's coming back as a kind of revival, isn't it? But it's kind of strange. But you do really have to adapt to survive. The whole online streaming, downloading thing. I didn't really like at first. I didn't really like Facebook, but like I said before, the volcano in Iceland was the thing that made me get on Facebook and actually talk to people, because I thought we've got a lot of disappointed people here if we don't communicate. And it is really nice that you can direct your thoughts and people can direct their thoughts to you, and it's immediate. You know, I mean, you can't reply to everybody. You can't always be there, but every now and then, you know, there is this
vortex of people.
Yeah.
Bobby Lamb from